It all begins with lack, right? Because here's the way the ego's logic works. If I am separate, then I must be lacking, because I'm clearly lacking my source if I'm separate from my source. So like nobody thinks these things consciously. Nobody walks around thinking, I'm incomplete, or my happiness depends on outcomes, or I'm the doer of actions. Those aren't conscious thoughts to anybody. And so the ego hides its beliefs, which are subconscious, in thoughts. It crafts infinite varieties of thoughts out of those three beliefs. So although nobody really knows consciously that they believe these things, their thoughts are giving it away all day long. And so the belief in lack never presents itself as I am lacking or I am incomplete. That'd be too obvious, right? Ego's very clever. It knows how to disguise its philosophy from you, to keep tricking you. So it will disguise that belief in thoughts like, I'm just not pretty enough, or I'm just not smart enough for that, or I don't think I could succeed at that. All these lack-based thoughts. And so what's underlying all of them, what's the common thread, is the belief itself that you are lacking or could be lacking. If you go down to the average person on the street and interviewed them and said, do you believe that you're incomplete? Like most of them would probably say no, right? They'd be like, what? No, of course not. Like I have self-confidence or whatever. So that's how pervasive and sneaky the ego is like it has everybody captured and almost nobody realizes it. So we have to ask the question, how do we start working our way out of this problem? And it just begins with awareness, of course, first of all. But the Course in Miracles also has an amazing teaching on this, similar to only what I have not given can ever be lacking. It also teaches something that really impacted me as well, which is that salvation must be wherever sin is. Or in other words, the answer must be wherever the problem is, because a problem implies an answer, right? This is even true in mathematics. If there's a problem, there is an answer to the problem. But the Course says, and actually, the answer is where the problem is, which makes sense through polarity. Everything is just a polarity. So if you go to the problem and you meet it close enough, it will reveal the solution to the problem. And so this is what we do with requalifying, is we actually go to the belief, the feeling itself, and see it as the actual remedy for the problem. And this is where the emotional guidance system is so huge, is that everyone is demonizing, hating, and trying to get rid of these uncomfortable emotions. And yet they're actually holding the answers in their hands that everyone's looking for. They're trying to tell you what the problem is. They are negative emotions in this way are messengers from your inner world that are sort of coming up from your subconscious mind to report something important to you. So the analogy I use is like if a king has, a messenger come from a faraway country on a horse, and he rides into the palace and jumps off his horse and sprints up to the king and Master, there's a huge army coming, like prepare the troops. The king's probably not going to be happy to hear that. But does he kill the messenger? No, that's where the phrase comes from, right? Don't shoot the messenger. That's what we've been doing with our feelings, right? We shoot the messenger, we shoot the feeling as if it's the problem. And actually the feeling is trying to tell you something important. Although it's not good news at the time, it's still important news. And so you can see how a king who's very disappointed to hear this news might also promote this guy to a higher status out of gratitude, right? Like, thanks for warning me, man. So like we should adopt that relationship to our emotions and realize my emotions are never coming to hurt or attack me. My emotions are me, but they're coming to warn me of something, because obviously it has to feel bad to think incorrectly. If it felt good to think incorrectly, you would never know that you were believing wrongly about reality. You live 1,000 lifetimes and you would never understand reality. So thinking wrongly has to hurt. And that's what our emotions are doing, is that they're kind of like the bumpers on a bowling lane or something. Psychologically, it's like when we're out of alignment in our thinking, we hit a buzzer, and it's there to be painful on purpose. Like if you and I were on a road trip and you look over and I fell asleep at the wheel, and then we're like heading towards a cliff edge or something, like you're not going to be like gentle and kind to me in that moment and like whisper and rub my back like, Aaron, wake up, buddy. We're heading towards a cliff. you're gonna like, I mean, I would hope you would just slap me on the back of the head or something, right? You would do something immediate and swift and painful to shock me awake. And I might wake up for a split second and be like, hey, asshole, or whatever. And then I'll look at the problem in front of me and go, oh my God. And I'll slam on the brakes and be like, dude, thank you so much, Andre, for slapping me on the back of the head. There are times where that is necessary. And so whenever you feel a negative emotion, your inner being is the truth itself, right? You are the creator itself in this miniature avatar form. And so your inner being, your soul, is aligned with eternal truth. And so whenever you stray from that truth, your emotions are there to let you know. And so the key is for the emotional guidance system is that your emotions, you've often heard people say, right? Well, you can't trust your emotions because they'll lead you astray. You've got to trust, your thinking and discernment or whatever. And the truth is actually much prior to that by the time you feel a negative emotion, you've already gone astray somewhere in your thinking. So it's too late to complain about the emotion. You might as well just thank it and say, oh, please show me where I'm out of alignment right now. And that's the key, is that your emotions speak to your self-perception. Everything at the end of the day, right, Andre, is self-perception. You're always looking out through this prism, through these eyes, through this mind. You can't get out of it. And so in a way, everything you experience is a new experience of yourself, because you're the one who's thinking about it and feeling things about it and interacting with it. So something else I say in the book is you only experience yourself. I had a meditative experience with this that I write about in the book of this kind of spiritual being appeared to me in a meditation one day. And I didn't see any physical form, but it was like a felt experience. And I knew I could feel the presence of some ascended master with me. And it psychically sort of communicated to me, ask me one question and I'll answer you. And it sort of like prompted me, but you better make it a good question because I'm not going to answer two questions, or if you have a clarification, like you get one question. And so I thought, oh, wow, like what should I ask? There's so many options. And it came down to the simple question that any good devotee asks a guru, which is, who am I? And as soon as I uttered the question in my mind, it was almost like I was still saying it and the guru swept up to me like nose to nose. And again, it wasn't visual, but I felt that that's what it was doing. And it like locked eyeballs with me, so to speak. And it said, you are what you experience. And it disappeared. And I was just left in this meditative state, like, what a trippy experience, but it was undeniably real. So I just sat there and thought about it. And I thought about it for days. I'm like, I am what I experience. And for a while I disagreed with him, like, no, he was wrong, And then I'm like, no, actually I see what he meant, which is what I just said. You always experience your own reference frame. No matter what's happening, you're experiencing it through the brain and the mind of Aaron Abke. So yeah, you always experience yourself. And so what is the best barometer for who I am in this moment? It's what's my state of being like in this moment? How am I responding to the present moment? And so if I watch my state of being, I'm getting all the answers, is kind of the key that was given. And so once I know I only experience myself, sadness is part of myself, anger is part of myself, fear is part of myself. But what are they? They are warnings, directions, and messengers. And so that's where the understanding of the three beliefs came through, is that if I learn to actually not repress or run away from these painful feelings, but run to them like a good king welcomes in the messenger who's bringing bad news, if I welcome them in, they'll tell me their secrets. They'll point to me where the problem is. And if I know the problem is always in my self-perception, now I've really whittled down where to look for the problem, right? This was such a huge key for me, man, to realize your emotions do not speak to your circumstances. In that, whatever's happening around you, whatever emotions you're feeling, the emotion is not telling you to do anything. And that's inarguable to me because emotions are non-conceptual, right? They are sensations. And so by definition, they aren't concepts. So they're not trying to tell you information of what to do or what not to do. They're reflecting something. So our emotions are reflections, not directions. And so what are they reflecting? Our self-perception. So the key is if I see myself or think about myself, perceive myself in a way that God does not see me, then I feel a negative emotion. And then on the other hand, positive emotions serve the same function, but to the other polarity. So when I feel, think, perceive about myself like God sees me, then I feel a positive emotion. So if it feels good, it's true. If it feels bad, it's not true, is kind of the very simple way to boil it down. There's lots of nuances to that, of course, of how is it not true. But the how it's not true is your self-perception. If you're sad, it's because you think you're lacking something right now. Period, end of story. And that isn't fundamentally true. You aren't actually lacking anything. Anything you want or need is available to you at all times in the universe. How to get it is the only question, but the lack does not play part of the equation. So you see, it always has to feel negative to believe you're lacking because it's always not true. And that also goes with the other two beliefs as well.